I stood on the front lawn, keys in hand, staring at the brick facade that now belonged to me. After 10 years of overtime, careful budgeting, and turning down vacations, while friends traveled the world, I had finally done it. This 3-bedroom house with the maple tree out front was mine. All mine. I decided not to tell my parents until after closing. I wanted to surprise them with my accomplishment, imagining their proud faces when they saw what their oldest son had achieved. I never expected their reaction would shatter our relationship forever. Before I tell you how my own family betrayed me, let me know where you are watching from today. If you have ever felt like the overlooked child, hit that like button and subscribe to know you are not alone. Growing up as the oldest child, I always tried to make my parents proud. From an early age, I understood responsibility. While other kids played video games after school, I helped around the house, maintained good grades, and even started working part-time jobs at 16. My parents always said they valued hard work and independence, which was why I thought they would be thrilled when I bought my first home. My brother Jake was different from me in almost every way possible. 3 years younger, he approached life with a carefree attitude that somehow never seemed to disappoint our parents. When he totaled his first car at 17, they bought him another one. When he dropped out of college after 2 semesters of partying, they called it finding himself and continued paying his rent. When he needed money for unexpected expenses, their checkbook was always open. I never resented their generosity toward Jake. That is just how some parents are with their youngest. But I did expect the same support would be available to me if I ever needed it. I just never asked, because I prided myself on being self-sufficient. 5 years ago, Jake married Amanda after dating for just 6 months. They had their first child, Thomas, within a year, followed by little Sophia 2 years later. My parents were overjoyed about becoming grandparents. Every family gathering became centered around the grandchildren, which was perfectly understandable. I adored my niece and nephew too. Meanwhile, I remained single, pouring my energy into my career as a software engineer. Dating took a back seat to my professional goals and my dream of owning property in our increasingly expensive city. Every time my parents asked about my love life, I changed the subject to my latest project at work, or a new skill I was developing. They would exchange that look they always shared when discussing my personal choices, the one that said, "Poor Avery, so focused on work, he will miss out on real life." Despite feeling like the family outsider at times, I maintained regular contact with my parents. Sunday dinners at their house were a tradition I rarely missed, even when deadlines loomed at work. I called them several times a week and helped them with technology issues, home repairs, and yard work whenever needed. I wanted to stay connected to my family, even when their clear preference for Jake and his ready-made family stung. The decision to buy a house came after my 30th birthday. I realized I had spent over a decade renting, essentially throwing money away instead of building equity. With my career stable and my savings substantial, it seemed like the perfect time to invest in real estate. I started researching neighborhoods, property taxes, and mortgage rates, creating spreadsheets to analyze the best options within my budget. The journey to homeownership was not easy. I took on freelance projects on weekends to boost my down payment fund. I cut expenses ruthlessly, bringing lunch to work every day, canceling streaming services, and even moving to a smaller apartment temporarily to save on rent. Friends invited me to destination weddings and group vacations that I declined, knowing each saved dollar brought me closer to my goal. For 3 solid years, I lived on a strict budget. I tracked every penny, celebrated when my savings account hit milestones, and visualized walking through my own front door. There were moments of doubt and fatigue nights when I questioned if the sacrifice was worth it. But I persevered, driven by the promise of financial security and the pride of achievement. By the time I was ready to start house hunting, I had saved enough for a 20% down payment on a modest home in a decent neighborhood. I wanted to avoid private mortgage insurance and secure the best possible interest rate, so I waited until I had the full amount before contacting a realtor. Sarah, my real estate agent, was patient and knowledgeable. She understood my priorities: a solid structure in a safe neighborhood with good schools, even though I did not have children. You are thinking about resale value, she approved. Smart move. Over the course of 4 months, we viewed more than 30 properties. Some were in perfect neighborhoods, but needed extensive renovations. Others were beautifully updated but in areas with high crime rates or failing schools. A few seemed promising, until inspection reports revealed foundation issues or outdated electrical systems. The process was exhausting and often disheartening. Then on a rainy Tuesday after work, Sarah called with excitement in her voice. "I have a new listing that just hit the market this morning," she said. "It checks all your boxes, but we need to move fast. Can you meet me there in an hour?" The moment I walked through the front door of the brick colonial, I knew. This was it. The house had 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, hardwood floors throughout the main level, and a recently renovated kitchen. The backyard was spacious enough for entertaining with mature trees, providing privacy and shade. The neighborhood was established with low turnover and an active community association. "The owners are relocating for work," Sarah explained, as I wandered from room to room already imagining my furniture in the spaces. "They need to sell quickly, which might work in your favor for negotiations." I made an offer that evening slightly below asking price, but with minimal contingencies to make it attractive. After a brief counteroffer, we reached an agreement. The inspection went smoothly, revealing only minor issues that the sellers agreed to repair. The mortgage application process was straightforward thanks to my excellent credit score and stable employment history. On closing day, I sat at a table, surrounded by stacks of papers, signing my name dozens of times. When the settlement agent handed me the keys, I felt a surge of emotion that caught me by surprise. I had done it. Without financial help from family, without a partner to share the burden, I had achieved this milestone on my own. After spending the first week in my new house unpacking and arranging furniture, I decided it was time to share my achievement with my family. I considered simply sending them my new address, but that seemed anticlimactic after keeping such a big secret. Instead, I planned a dinner party to reveal my surprise. I wanted everything to be perfect for the big reveal. I spent an entire day cleaning every corner of the house, even though most of it was already spotless. I went to 3 different stores to find just the right decorative touches: new hand towels for the bathroom, a centerpiece for the dining table, and scented candles that made the whole place smell like home. The menu required careful consideration. My mother was an excellent cook, and I wanted to impress her with my culinary skills. I settled on her favorite pot roast recipe that she had taught me years ago, along with roasted vegetables, homemade rolls, and a chocolate cake for dessert. I even splurged on an expensive bottle of champagne for the toast I imagined we would share when they saw my new home. I called my parents on Wednesday to invite them for dinner that Saturday. "I have some exciting news to share," I said, trying to contain my enthusiasm. "Can you and Dad come over around 6? I already invited Jake and Amanda and the kids." "News? What kind of news?" my mother asked, curiosity evident in her voice. "Did you get a promotion? Or is there finally someone special in your life?" I laughed. "You will have to wait and see. Just make sure you and Dad are hungry." "We will be there," she promised. "And I will call Jake to make sure they come too. You know how busy they are with the children." The day of the dinner arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. I woke up early to start the pot roast, wanting it to slow cook to perfection. I set the dining room table with the nicest dishes I owned, placing a printed house key at each adult place, setting as a symbolic gesture. For Thomas and Sophia, I bought small toy houses, thinking they might enjoy having a trinket from their uncle's special day. As 6 o'clock approached, I paced around the living room, rehearsing how I would make my announcement. Should I tell them right away, when they arrived, or wait until we were seated for dinner? Should I make a speech or keep it casual? I decided to let them wonder a bit, give them a tour of the house, and then reveal that it was actually mine. During dinner, at 10 after 6, I heard cars pulling into the driveway. Taking a deep breath, I opened the front door with a wide smile. My parents arrived first, followed closely by Jake, Amanda, and the kids. Thomas ran to give me a hug, while Sophia hid behind her mother's legs, still shy at 3 years old. "This is a nice place," my father commented, looking around the entryway. "Whose house is this, one of your friends? Let me take your coats, and then I will give you the grand tour," I said, avoiding the question with a grin. "Dinner is almost ready, but we have time for a quick look around first." I led them through the living room, with its large windows and cozy fireplace, into the updated kitchen where the pot roast was filling the house with a delicious aroma. I showed them the dining room, the office I had set up in the smallest bedroom, the master bedroom with its attached bath, and the backyard with its patio, perfect for summer barbecues. Throughout the tour, my family made polite comments. My mother admired the crown molding in the dining room. Jake noted the size of the television in the living room. Amanda commented on the modern appliances in the kitchen. But nobody asked the obvious question: why was I giving them a tour of this house? When we gathered around the dining table, I could not wait any longer. As I poured wine for the adults and juice for the children, I took a deep breath and made my announcement. "So you are probably wondering why I invited you to this particular house tonight." I began, unable to keep the smile from my face. "The reason is, this is my house. I bought it. I closed on it last week." The silence that followed was not the reaction I had anticipated. I expected gasps of surprise, exclamations of congratulations, perhaps even a toast. Instead, my parents exchanged a look I could not quite interpret, while Jake raised his eyebrows and took a large sip of his wine. My mother spoke first. "You bought a house, without telling us. Why would you make such a big decision without asking for our input?" I wanted it to be a surprise. I explained, my enthusiasm dimming slightly, and I did not need input. I researched everything thoroughly, worked with a great realtor, and found exactly what I was looking for. "But it is so far from our neighborhood," my father said, frowning. "It must be a 30-minute drive from our house." "Why would you choose to live all the way out here?" "This area has better property values and lower taxes," I explained. "Plus, it is actually closer to my office, which shortens my commute." Amanda looked around with a slight frown. "It seems awfully big for just one person. What do you need 3 bedrooms for investment in the future?" I replied, trying to maintain my positive tone. "And having guest rooms means you guys can stay over any time with the kids." Jake snorted. "Yeah, right. Like we would drag the kids all the way out here, when we could just stay with Mom and Dad, who are 5 minutes from our apartment." I felt my smile becoming fixed as I served the food. This was not going at all how I had imagined. Where were the congratulations? The recognition of my achievement? The pride I had expected to see in my parents' eyes? "How much did this set you back?" my father asked bluntly, as he cut into his pot roast. "Housing market is inflated right now. You probably overpaid." "I got a very fair price," I said defensively, "and I saved enough for a 20% down payment to avoid PMI." "That must have been hundreds of thousands of dollars," my mother said, looking troubled. "All that money you could have been saving for your future family or retirement spent on this house in this faraway neighborhood." "Mom buying a house is saving for my future," I explained, trying to keep frustration out of my voice. "And I am only 35. There is plenty of time for retirement planning and other things. At 35, most people already have a family started," Amanda commented. "The biological clock is ticking, you know." I took a large gulp of wine. Not everyone follows the same timeline. The dinner continued with increasingly uncomfortable conversation. My family picked at the food I had spent hours preparing while peppering me with questions that felt more like accusations. Why did I not get a home inspection? I assured them I did. Was the roof new? Yes, replaced just 2 years ago. Did I check the school district ratings? Of course, though, it did not directly impact me now. Jake seemed particularly determined to find flaws with my purchase. "That backyard is going to be a lot of maintenance," he said. "Hope you like mowing lawns and raking leaves on your weekends." "Actually, I am looking forward to having outdoor space," I replied. "I might even start a small garden." "Gardens are expensive and time-consuming," my father warned, "and for what vegetables you could buy cheaper at the store." I was about to explain that gardening would be a hobby not a cost-saving measure, when my mother sighed heavily, putting down her fork. I just do not understand why you would do this without talking to us first. Avery, she said, we have been planning for so long, saving carefully, and now you go and do this. Her words confused me. Planning what? What does my buying a house have to do with your plans? My parents exchanged another one of their meaningful looks. My father cleared his throat. Well, since you brought it up with this surprise of yours, we might as well tell you. Your mother and I have been setting aside money for years to help Jake and Amanda buy a house. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I stared at them, fork suspended midway to my mouth. You. What? They need more space with the children, my mother explained as if it were obvious. That tiny apartment is not suitable for a growing family. Thomas and Sophia need a yard to play in, and another baby may come along soon. She glanced meaningfully at Amanda, who smiled and put a hand on her still flat stomach. Congratulations, I said automatically to Jake and Amanda, though the words felt hollow. But I do not understand. Why would you not tell me about this plan? It never came up, my father said with a shrug. You always seemed focused on your work, not settling down. Jake and Amanda have actual needs. Actual needs, I repeated, my voice rising slightly. As opposed to my fake needs. That is not what your father meant, my mother said quickly. It is just that they have the children to consider. And I do not matter because I am single. The hurt was turning to anger now. You never even considered helping me with a down payment, did you? You never asked for help, my father pointed out. And clearly you did not need it since you just bought this place all on your own. Jake leaned back in his chair with a smirk. Always the self-sufficient one, right, bro? Too proud to ask for help, then upset when none is offered. That is not fair, I said. I did not ask because I thought I should stand on my own feet like you always taught us, Dad. But you offered to help Jake without him asking. Different circumstances, my father said firmly. How is it different? I demanded. Because he has kids? Because he got married young? Or is it just because he is Jake, and I am me? An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Thomas looked up from his plate, sensing the tension. Are you mad, Uncle Avery? Before I could answer, my mother spoke again, her voice soft but with a strange intensity. We should probably tell you the rest, since everything is coming out tonight anyway. Your father and I have discussed it, and we think it makes sense for Jake, Amanda, and the children to move in with us for a while. Move in with you, I echoed. Why would they need to do that? I thought you were helping them buy a house. Housing prices keep rising, my father explained. If they live with us for a year or two and save what they would spend on rent plus our contribution, they could afford something really nice in our neighborhood. So they are going to live with you rent-free for years, I clarified, incredulity mounting. Family helps family, my mother said simply. Jake nodded. We will contribute to groceries and utilities, of course. But this way we can give the kids stability while saving for their future. I looked around the table at my family. At my parents, who had never once offered to help with my housing situation. At my brother, who had received financial support his entire adult life. At my sister-in-law, who seemed to expect this assistance as her due. And something inside me snapped. So let me get this straight, I said, setting down my napkin. You have been planning for years to help Jake buy a house, but never mentioned it to me. Now you are also planning to let his entire family live with you rent-free while they save. Meanwhile, I bought this house entirely on my own, after years of saving and sacrifice, and instead of being proud or happy for me, you criticize my decision and imply I wasted my money. No one is criticizing you, my mother protested weakly. Really? Because that is all I have heard since you arrived. The neighborhood is too far. The house is too big. I am too single. I spent too much money. What exactly would you call that if not criticism? Jake rolled his eyes, dramatic as usual. This is why we do not include you in family planning. Everything becomes about you and your feelings. That was the breaking point. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I think you should all leave. Avery, my mother began, looking alarmed. Do not overreact. We are just having a discussion. No, we are not. You are revealing that there have always been two sets of rules in this family. One for Jake and one for me. I just finally have concrete proof of what I have suspected for years. Son, my father said sternly, sit down and finish your dinner. You are making a scene in front of the children. This is my house, I said firmly. The house I bought with my own money, because it never occurred to me that my parents might help me the way they helped my brother. And I am asking you all to leave. Now. Jake stood up, pulling Amanda to her feet as well. Come on, babe. Let Princess Avery have his tantrum. We will finish dinner at Mom and Dad's. As they gathered the children and their belongings, my mother tried one more time. Please, Avery, let us talk about this rationally. Family should stick together. You should have thought of that before making it clear which family member actually matters to you, I replied, holding the front door open. One by one, they filed out, my father, shaking his head in disappointment, my mother looking tearful, Jake muttering about overreactions, and Amanda hustling the confused children to their car. As I closed the door behind them, the house that had felt so full of promise just hours before now seemed to echo with their rejection. The next week passed in a blur of emotions. My parents called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that ranged from concerned to irritated. We need to talk about your behavior, my father said in one message. This silent treatment is childish. My mother took a different approach. We love you, Avery. Please call us back so we can work this out. I listened to each message, but could not bring myself to return their calls. The revelation about their plans for Jake had forced me to reevaluate our entire family dynamic, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. This was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of a lifetime of inequity. After 9 days of silence, my mother sent a text. We are worried about you. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? At that place near your new house. Just to talk. My parents arrived looking tired. My mother attempted to hug me, but I stepped back, gesturing for them to sit. We exchanged awkward pleasantries about the weather and the coffee before my father cleared his throat. We have been thinking about your reaction at the dinner, he began, his tone measured, as if speaking to a volatile client. While we understand you were surprised by our plans for Jake and his family, we think you are blowing things out of proportion. Out of proportion, I repeated. You have been secretly saving money for years to help my brother buy a house, money that was never offered or even mentioned to me, and I am supposed to be fine with that. You never needed our help, my mother said. You have always been so independent, so capable. Jake struggles more with finances. He struggles because you never made him responsible for himself, I pointed out. And did it ever occur to you that maybe I was independent because I had to be? Because I learned early that asking for help was pointless when Jake always came first. My father frowned. That is not fair, Avery. We raised you both the same. I laughed without humor. Dad, that is demonstrably untrue. When Jake crashed his car, you bought him a new one. When I needed a car for college, you suggested I get a job to pay for it myself. When Jake dropped out of college, you continued to pay his rent. When I wanted to study abroad, you said I needed to figure out the funding on my own. The pattern is clear, and it has been my entire life. My mother looked distressed. Those were different situations, different how I pressed. Jake needs more support, she said finally. He always has. Because you trained him to, I replied. You enabled his irresponsibility and punished my self-sufficiency. A tense silence fell over the table. My father took a long sip of his coffee before speaking again. Look, what is done, but we wanted to suggest a solution that might work for everyone. I am listening, I said cautiously. We think you should consider selling your new house and moving closer to us, he said. Property in our area is a better investment long-term, and being closer to family is important. With the profits from the sale, you could buy something smaller near us, and maybe even have money left over to help Jake with his down payment. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. Help Jake with his down payment. With my money. Family helps family. My mother repeated her mantra from the dinner, and this way we could all be together again. In that moment I saw with perfect clarity what they were proposing, not just that I should sacrifice my dream home, but that I should directly finance my brother's life at my own expense. The suggestion was so outrageous, so deeply unfair, that I could only shake my head in disbelief. "That is never going to happen," I said quietly. "Never. You are being selfish," my father said, his voice hardening. "Your brother has children to consider." "Children he chose to have, knowing his financial situation," I replied. "His choices are not my responsibility. So you will not even consider helping your own niece and nephew?" my mother asked, tears forming in her eyes. "I love Thomas and Sophia," I said firmly. "But using them as emotional leverage to get me to fund Jake's lifestyle is manipulative and wrong." Later that day, Jake sent a series of text messages that confirmed everything I had realized at the coffee shop. "Way to upset Mom and Dad," the first one read. "They came back from meeting you looking like someone died." I did not respond, so he continued. "Must be nice to be so selfish. Some of us have real responsibilities, you know. And finally, when you get over yourself, maybe you could loan me some money for a down payment, since you obviously have plenty to spare for your fancy house." That evening, my mother's sister, Aunt Carol, called. This was unusual, as we rarely spoke outside of family gatherings. "Avery," she said when I answered, "I heard there was some trouble between you and your parents. They are very worried about you." "Did they tell you what happened?" I asked. "They mentioned you were upset about some financial decisions they made to help Jake and his family. They said you bought a house without consulting anyone, and now you are refusing to speak to them." The selective and misleading version of events did not surprise me. "That is not quite accurate," I said, and proceeded to explain the actual situation. When I finished, Aunt Carol was quiet for a moment. "I see," she said finally. "You know your parents have always told everyone how independent and successful you are, and how Jake needs more guidance. I never realized that might not be the whole story." After hanging up, I learned from cousins that my parents had been calling various family members, describing me as selfish and unreasonable. According to them, I was jealous of Jake's family and throwing a tantrum about money. They never mentioned their secret house fund or their suggestion that I sell my new home to help finance Jake's. This campaign of misinformation was the final straw. For decades, I had accepted the unequal treatment, made excuses for my parents' favoritism, and continued to show up and maintain the relationship despite the hurt. But now, they were actively trying to damage my reputation within the extended family to pressure me into compliance. I sat at my kitchen table that night, surrounded by the home I had worked so hard to obtain, and made the most difficult decision of my life. The pattern would never change unless I changed it. The unequal dynamic would continue unless I refused to participate in it any longer. The next morning, I opened my laptop and composed a lengthy email. I addressed it to my parents with copies to Jake and several key extended family members who had been fed the false narrative. In calm, detailed language, I laid out the pattern of favoritism that had defined our family relationships for decades. I explained how their different treatment of Jake and me had affected my self-worth and my trust in them. I described the dinner party incident, their revelation about the secret house fund, and their suggestion that I sell my home to help Jake. "I have spent my entire life seeking your approval and working to earn the same love and support you give so freely to Jake," I wrote. "I now understand that this approval will never come, and that my worth in your eyes will always be secondary. For my own well-being, I have decided to step away from this dynamic. I am cutting contact with all of you for the foreseeable future." I concluded by asking them not to call, text, email, or visit me. I blocked their numbers on my phone, removed them from my social media, and set up email filters to automatically archive anything from their addresses. It was a clean break, painful but necessary. The first few weeks were the hardest. There were moments when I reached for my phone to call my mother about something trivial, only to remember our estrangement. There were Sunday evenings when the absence of family dinner left me feeling adrift. There were achievements at work I wanted to share with my father, before recalling that his pride had always been conditionally given. But there was also a profound sense of relief. The constant need to prove my worth had lifted. The subtle comparisons to Jake, the reminders of my single status, the minimizing of my accomplishments, all these stressors were gone from my daily life. I poured my energy into making my house truly mine. I painted the living room a bold blue that my mother would have called too dark. I converted one bedroom into a home gym, something my father would have deemed wasteful. I planted vegetables in the backyard, ignoring his warning about the expense and effort. Each decision made without consideration of their judgment felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Gradually, I built a new support system. I reconnected with college friends who had drifted away while I focused on work and saving. I joined a neighborhood association and met people who lived nearby. I started hosting small gatherings, casual barbecues, in summer board game nights, in winter creating new traditions to replace the ones I had lost. My colleagues noticed the change in me. "You seem happier," my project manager commented during a review. "More confident in your decisions." She was right. Without the constant undercurrent of family disapproval, I found myself speaking up more in meetings, taking on leadership roles I would have previously avoided, even negotiating a promotion that increased my salary by 15%. 6 months after the break, I met Lauren at a community garden workshop. She was funny, thoughtful, and refreshingly direct. On our third date, when the topic of family inevitably arose, I told her the truth about my situation. I expected judgment or discomfort, but instead she nodded with understanding. "Family dynamics can be toxic," she said. "Sometimes distance is the only healthy option." Her acceptance of my decision without question or criticism confirmed that I had made the right choice. Our relationship developed naturally, without the pressure of parental expectations or comparisons. For the first time, I was building a connection based solely on compatibility and mutual respect, not on what others thought it should be. A year into my self-imposed exile from my family, an email from my mother appeared in my inbox. Despite my filters, it somehow made it through, perhaps because she had created a new address. The subject line read simply, "We were wrong." Against my better judgment, I opened it. "Dear Avery," she wrote, "a year without you has given us time to reflect on our behavior and the points you raised in your final email. Your father and I have been seeing a family therapist trying to understand how we created such inequality between our children. We realize now that we did favor Jake, making excuses for his behavior, while holding you to higher standards. We told ourselves it was because he needed more help, but the truth is that we enabled his dependence while taking your independence for granted." She went on to explain that their plans to help Jake buy a house had fallen through. The money they had saved was insufficient for current housing prices, and the arrangement to have his family live with them had quickly become strained. Jake and Amanda had moved out after just 3 months, with relationships damaged on all sides. "We miss you," she concluded. "We understand if you are not ready to forgive us, but we would like the opportunity to apologize in person and begin to rebuild trust, whatever that might look like." I did not respond immediately. I shared the email with Lauren and with the therapist I had been seeing to work through my family issues. Both advised caution, but acknowledged that people can change if they truly recognize their harmful patterns. After careful consideration, I wrote back agreeing to meet, but with clear boundaries. We would meet at a neutral location, not my home. Lauren would accompany me, and I made it clear that one meeting did not guarantee a return to regular contact. The reunion was awkward, but surprisingly productive. My parents seemed genuinely remorseful, acknowledging specific instances of favoritism, without defensiveness. They had come to recognize how their different treatment had shaped both Jake and me in harmful ways. They did not ask for immediate forgiveness, only for the chance to demonstrate changed behavior over time. Jake was not present. According to my parents, he had reacted poorly to their attempts to establish healthier boundaries around money and support. "He called us terrible parents," my father admitted. "The same thing you accused us of, but for opposite reasons." Over the months that followed, we rebuilt our relationship cautiously. We met occasionally for lunch or coffee, always in public places, always with clear time limits. My parents respected these boundaries, never pushing for more contact than I was comfortable with. They listened when I shared difficult memories, acknowledging my experiences rather than dismissing them. They expressed interest in my life and my relationship with Lauren, without judgment or comparisons. The journey of healing is ongoing. I do not know if we will ever have the close relationship some families enjoy, but we have found a new equilibrium based on mutual respect rather than obligation or manipulation. I have learned that standing up for yourself does not mean permanently burning bridges. It means refusing to cross bridges that only go one way. In my new home with boundaries I enforce and relationships I choose, I have found a peace I never knew was possible. Family, I now understand, is not just about blood or history. It is about reciprocity, respect, and genuine care. Sometimes the family we create matters more than the one we were born into. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family members who treated you unfairly? Did it help heal the relationship, or was cutting ties completely the healthier choice? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons about family dynamics and personal growth. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, you deserve equal love and respect, not just within your family, but in every relationship in your life.